Nithyanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Yanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadusham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Satgurum Tam Namami. Hello and welcome to my new show live here on Nithyananda TV. My name is Ma Nithya Mayatitananda. I'm a Krama Brahmacharya with Paramahamsa Nithyananda's mission here in Vidadi, India. Now some of you may have met me or known me in my Purvashram life. My name was Megan Bishop Scott and I wrote a spiritual memoir called Inside the Wall, From Hollywood to Homeless to Higher Consciousness. And it was about my journey. At the time, I thought it was to hell and back, but now I realize why everything happened and the meaning of these experiences in our lives and why life is like a video game. What this show is going to be about is how all of us have lived amazing experiences and how Swamiji, our nickname, our fond name for Paramahamsa Nithyananda, how he has brought resolution, clarity, and meaning to lives that may seem like they're in chaos to begin with. In my memoir, some of the things I mentioned were the beginning of my journey. And a lot of us begin spiritual journeys out of confusion and disappointment in life. Or some begin them because they've accomplished everything they wanted to accomplish and they start wondering, well, what's next? What more is there? There's an emptiness because the material accomplishments aren't doing it for you. And my journey began as a combination of all of those things. And I might not have known I was on a spiritual journey to find an avatar, but the amazing thing about pure consciousness, the universe, is that it hears a soul's cry and it hears when you desperately need to finally connect with Source and live the life you were meant to live. And we may think that the lives we were meant to live involved getting married, getting the house with the white picket fence, and then living happily ever after. And sadly, that's not it. And many of us have tried to live that template and been immensely disappointed. So if you are in that state, if you're wondering what else there is in life, this might be the show for you. We're going to have guests from all walks of life. Some of them will be the Swamis here at Nithyananda's Adheenam, and some will be just people who've attended his Inner Awakening program and have experienced immense transformation because of meeting him. Now, to give you a little context about an avatar, in case this is brand new to you, as it was to me, coming from the West, growing up in a Protestant church, I had absolutely no concept of what a guru was or why you would even want one. And in the Christian tradition, we're raised to think Jesus is the only person who had attained that high level of existence because he was the Son of God. And it leaves you feeling like you're always going to be second best. You're never going to reach the peak. You're never going to be at the top of the game. What amazed me when I finally found Hinduism was that we are all expected to reach that peak. We are all sons of God. We are all expected to attain the Christ consciousness, as they call it in Christianity. In Hinduism, it's Jivan Mukti or enlightenment. And rather than think you just got one shot at this game, one quick go around, you got your ticket, you're going to get on the ride and go around once. We've actually incarnated thousands of times and often on many different planets. Just as the Hubble telescope is revealing to us, all of those bright stars out there have planets around them where there is existence and there are living beings. We have lived on those planets, which is probably why shows like Star Trek, Star Wars have such massive audiences, because deep down your soul remembers living on another planet in another type of existence. Now what Swamiji has revealed to me and to many that made me feel so excited about life was that we live on all these planets, we play all these games. Life is like a video game and you just keep reincarnating, new character, new tools, new abilities, new challenges. You play the game. At the end, the character dies. You drop that form, but you are still alive. And I remember watching my son play his video games and realizing this is life. You make a mistake and you fall off a cliff. Oh well, he would just...
Svabhavachinmayanandam Kripapurnam Jagatpatim Harishadvargajetaram Nithyananda Gurum Bhaje Svabhavachinmayanandam Kripapurnam Jagatpatim Harishadvargajetaram Nithyananda Gurum Bhaje.
என்னுடைய வாழ்க்கையில் நடந்த ஒரு நிகழ்ச்சி, இந்த உள்முகமாக திரும்புதல், அந்த தீட்சை எப்படி நடந்தது. சாமி சின்ன வயசுல என்னுடைய விளையாட்டு வாழ்க்கையே இந்த தெய்வ விக்கிரகங்களோடும் பூஜையோடும் தான். அதுதான் என்னுடைய விளையாட்டு. இதுவரைக்கும் தமிழ்நாட்டில் இருக்கிற அந்த சிறுபிள்ளைகள் விளையாடுற அந்த கோலி அடித்தல், குண்டடித்தல், பம்பரம் ஒண்ணு செஞ்சது கிடையாது. வாழ்க்கையில அதுக்கு பாகமே இல்லை. எந்த விளையாட்டும் வாழ்க்கையில் நடந்ததில்லை. விளையாடி மொத்தமும் விநாயகரை வச்சும் முருகனை வச்சும் சிவனை வச்சும் தேவியை வச்சும் அது செய்யற பூஜைகள் தான் விளையாட்டு. சடங்குகள், தியானங்கள் தான் விளையாட்டு. அதுதான் வாழ்க்கை. சின்ன வயசுல ஒரு பிள்ளையார் வாங்கி கொடுத்துட்டார்கள். பிறந்த நாள் பரிசா அப்பா வாங்கி கொடுத்துட்டார். அதுதான் விளையாட்டு விக்கிரகம். காலையில இருந்து சாயந்தரம் வரைக்கும் அந்த பிள்ளையாரை வச்சு அவருக்கு தண்ணி ஊத்தி சந்தனம் வச்சு பொட்டு வச்சு சாப்பாடு வச்சு என்னென்ன இந்த உடம்புக்கு பண்றோமோ அத்தனையும் அந்த உடம்புக்கும் பண்ணி பார்க்கறது. இன்னொன்னு, அந்த விக்கிரகங்களை நான் வெறும் விக்கிரகங்களா பார்க்கல, உயிருள்ள சக்தியாகவே உணர்ந்தோம். பிள்ளையார் சிலைன்னு சொல்ல மாட்டோம், பிள்ளையார்னு சொல்றது. முருகன் சிலைன்னு சொல்றது இல்ல, முருகன் தான் சொல்றது. சிவலிங்கம் சிவன் சிலைன்னு சொல்றது இல்ல, சிவன் தான் சொல்றது. ஒரு நாள் கோவில்ல ஏதோ ஒரு சமய பிரசங்கம் நடந்தது. திருவண்ணாமலை கோயில தொடர்ந்து நடந்துகிட்டே இருக்கும். சமய பிரசங்கத்துக்கு போயிருந்தோம். அப்போ இந்த பிரசங்கம் பண்ண அந்த சொற்பொழிவாளர் ஒருத்தர் நம்பியாண்டார் நம்பின்னு ஒரு பெரிய ஞானியினுடைய கதையை சொல்லிக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார். பெரிய பக்தர். அவருடைய கதை
Venice Beach. I decided it was 1988 and the homeless population was mushrooming in every big city in the world and no one would talk about it. And I just, being belligerent and angry with life, I just thought, well, I'm going to go down there and see what's happening. So I dressed in very nondescript clothes because I've traveled alone most of my life. And now that I'm in the sannyas order, I realized what a bonus that was, because I was always a renunciate, I was always a nomad, and I really didn't fit in the world any other way. This was a real blessing to find that there is a tradition that embraced somebody like me, because I didn't like holding on to possessions. I did like to travel, and I loved living outside the box, on the street, in the wilderness. I was raised by a mountain climber, spent most of my childhood in the mountains. I loved being in direct contact with existence without having a lot of houses and forms around me stifling me. So I went down to Venice Beach, and I was taken in by a homeless camp of runaway kids, and they showed me life in a way that I had never ever seen it before. And I realized that's when pure consciousness knew I was finally ready to play the game, that I wasn't going to work to pay the bills, and go back and forth and back and forth. I was ready to play for real. I wanted to see what life was about. I wanted to see if reality was really as scary as I'd been raised to think it was. And what I've found since then is every time you make a decision like that, every time you get an epiphany in your head and go, ooh, I want to try that. If it's coming from your soul and creates that kind of inner excitement in you, that's the only way existence can tell you, yes, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be some worker bee. Like, can you imagine you're God, you've created a game, and you're all excited because you've got all your little players and you want them to play. And if they just go back and forth, they work, they go home, they work, they go home, they work, and you've got this amazing world you've created. You'd just be so frustrated. Like, somebody try something different. And every time I've tried something different, even though it seemed insane to the people who knew me, I would get massive rushes of energy, and I could feel existence just creating everything I needed. There was no reason to think that any of the things I did would work. It was beyond logic. And that's when you know this is a virtual reality game and you are co-creator. Everything is possible. And the amazing thing about this tradition that Swamiji is reviving, because Hinduism has become just sort of another religion in another box. I know in the West I knew zero about it. I'd heard about maybe Ganesh, maybe Shiva, but really I knew nothing. And he is reviving it in all of its glory. Its original title is Sanatana Hindu Dharma, and it is the way of the world. This was a golden era tens of thousands of years ago when everyone just lived by this tradition. And yes, there were flying machines, people teleported, they could materialize what they wanted. It was a golden age of mankind. There was no poverty, no suffering. It was heaven on earth. And with the downfall of awareness of this, with people sliding into very strange states and feelings of low self-esteem, no self-worth, people just manipulating and taking advantage of each other, we've lost the glory of what it is to be a human and to realize we are gods. As Swamiji says, I'm not here to tell you I am God, I'm here to tell you you are God. And that is the massive difference between Hinduism and every other religion on earth, is the other religions make you feel like you're a beggar, you're a servant, you're a sinner. If you're good, maybe you'll make it into heaven, but don't expect anything to go right while you're on the planet. You're still paying for being a sinner. Whereas in Hinduism, it's you are a god, start behaving like it. Everything you think is possible. There are no boundaries on what you manifest. And some of the examples that I've been given since meeting Swamiji are instantaneous materialization. When you think something, you literally can go around the corner and there it is. I'll back up a minute and just explain how exactly I met Swamiji. My son was a teenager and I was living in Canada, and a mountain climber came to our city and put on a presentation introducing us to Swamiji, and a couple hundred people showed up because, being a mountain culture, we were interested that a mountain climber had found this Eastern philosophy. And as soon as he started talking, I just felt my whole body go electric. And again, this is one of the signals the universe gives you when you're hearing something important. It says, as Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and the men and women only players. All of our helpers and cheerleaders have to be off in the wings. They can't be on stage with you. You're on stage alone when it's your incarnation. But little hints can come from the sidelines, little signals that you're on the right path. And one of those signals is that electric feeling, that rush of energy, heating up, sometimes crying, sometimes just... I've been with people and talking to them about Swamiji and they'll just start crying. And that's your soul going, this is important, please pay attention. This is going to get you where you want to go. And I listened to this talk about Swamiji, immediately joined a little meditation group we put together to learn his Nitya Dhyan meditation, which is his first sort of groundbreaking universal meditation that anyone can do no matter what their belief structure. And I just started doing the meditations. And my son grew up, and finally he announced he was going to go travel the world and he might be gone for a few years. Don't wait up for me. And I literally put him on the plane, and I was a single parent. My husband had vanished. And I remember thinking, I don't know who I am. Like, for 20 years I've just been struggling to work to pay the bills, to raise this child and keep him alive. And all of a sudden, that reason was gone, and I didn't know who I was. And 2 days later, I got a phone call from India. How fast can you come? Swamiji's inviting you. And it's one of those situations that you hear about in stories, you hear about in movies, and you never ever believe that magic can happen to you. But somehow this avatar was inviting me to India, and how fast can you come here? And I was like, well, the kid just left. My reason for staying put just left. So I gave up the apartment and my things and came to India. That was in 2010. And as I mentioned in my memoir, it was called From Hollywood to Homeless to Higher Consciousness. And through the course of this show, I'll get into little stories here and there with guests. But basically, everything I feared in life happened to me. I went and lived with the homeless. I ended up marrying one of the homeless artists that I met. I gave birth alone in a little shack. My husband tried to kill us. We were attacked by a cult. My son was kidnapped. It was like one thing after another. It was like a bad, bad B movie. I couldn't make it stop. It was like I was on an earthquake zone and it would not stop for 10 years. And it's hard to explain to people the feeling that gives you, the low self-worth, why is this happening to me? What have I done wrong? I must be a horrible person for this kind of karma to be hitting me. I arrived here in India at Swamiji's invitation and started writing for him. And he put on a beautiful LEP course, Living Enlightenment Process. And it was to teach us all how one of the steps to becoming enlightened is to live as an enlightened being. So just learn how enlightened beings live, mimic that, and one day it'll just happen. So it was a wonderful 7-week course, and what the astonishing thing about it is it explained every single thing that had happened to me. And when people ask why you chose this path, why you're sticking with this guru, they don't understand that my entire life was explained to me in those 7 weeks here with Swamiji. Every single decision I made, every single so-called tragedy that happened to me, I ended up with a very clear, either he would give me a vision of why that happened, or in one of his morning talks, he would just explain that type of situation happening in your life and why it has to happen. And when I talked to the hundreds of people that were here with me, we were all having the same epiphanies and clicks happening to us, where I always wondered why that happened to my life, and he just explained it. He just said why this event works. One of the examples was the night that my husband went insane. He was a Vietnam vet, and later we found out he had a brain tumor, but at the time there was it happened very suddenly. There was no warning, and our son was 6 months old, and one night he just came home and grabbed one of his big carving axes. He carved djembe drums. And he came at us with this axe. And some women out there who've been attacked or abused, you know that feeling. It's an inexplicable feeling. And I had our son, and he got me down on the floor with this axe above his head. And a roar came out of me that was from another dimension. I've never heard a sound like that ever. My whole being seemed to be an echo chamber for this roar. And it shocked him so much that he froze. And it alerted the neighbors. Apparently the whole neighborhood heard this astonishing noise, and they burst through the door, found him, pulled him off me, and we were saved. So fast forward 10, 20 years later, I was sitting in the hall listening to Swamiji, and he talked about one night when he was circumambulating Arunachala Hill. So he was going around the Arunachala Hill where he grew up, the Tiruvannamalai temple. And it's a spiritual yatra that so many millions of people have done. The hill is considered Shiva on earth. And he regularly would walk around that hill, and often at night. And one night he was walking around the hill, and he came upon a pack of hyenas. And they just turned and looked at him, and of course a hyena will tear apart a young boy. And he said the same thing happened. This roar came out of him as if it was from another world. And Arunachala, Shiva, incarnated as a form, as a man, and chased these hyenas away and disappeared. And he explained that when that roar comes out of your system, what it is it's coming out of the Swadhisthana chakra, the chakra that's the next one up from the root chakra. And that's where fear sits. So when fear hits you at that level, at that life and death level, if you, instead of medicating yourself or trying to avoid it, if you dive all the way in, if there's nowhere else to go and you dive into that fear and you let it shake you completely, you let it rip your system apart, what it does is it roars out of you and it's gone. It's gone forever. And that's what I experienced. Was through the course of my son growing up, there were many situations that were that intense, but the fear never came back. And what would happen, my brain would get an alert that it's time for the adrenaline to kick in, and it's time to be fast and efficient, and for your brain to work, not to shut down and become a deer in the headlights. And that's what happens when you clear fear out of that chakra. You function at a very, very high level without being shut down by fear ever again in your life. And each of these chakras has something in it that it's up to us to clean out. The heart chakra is usually shut down by attention need. If you have felt unloved all your life, or that nobody cares about you, there is a technique that Swamiji teaches to heal that heart chakra, remove that, so that you not only experience love, you feel love for the whole world. And that's just a hint of some of the techniques that exist in this amazing world of Paramahamsa Nithyananda's, and the epiphanies that happen when you're in his presence. And I know not everybody has been attacked or had their life threatened, but we've all had some kind of an inner war going on. We've all experienced some turmoil that needs the guidance of a guru, and that's why we search out gurus and in this case an avatar. So if you ask what an avatar is, just watch a kid playing a video game. The avatar has won the game. They've gone to the highest level you can possibly go to, and they're now a master, and they can choose to come back onto the game board one more time, but they are the software. It's like that movie Tron, where the creator actually took on a persona so he could play on the game board with all the other players, even though they didn't know he was the game master. That's what an avatar is. This is how pure consciousness comes down onto the game board and shows you how you play the game to win, how you to become an enlightened being, an avatar, an incarnation. You can allow existence to fill up this form to the same degree that it has in Paramahamsa Nithyananda. And so many before him. He's not saying he's the only one that it's happened to. In Tiruvannamalai, where he's from, there's an unbroken lineage of enlightened beings for thousands of years have been just popping up like daisies from that town. It's a high energy field. It's Shiva in the Arunachala Hill. And so bodies just keep manifesting that can reach that piece, that clarity where the consciousness lands without being stopped by ego, flaws, all these other things that happen. So I'm coming close to the end of my time. I'll let you know that everyone that's going to be on this show will have a different story, and what I'm hoping will come from this is through these casual conversations that you can maybe see yourself in one of these people. You can see that you don't have to be a massive success in the enlightened field. You don't have to have studied or worked or done penance or starved in a cave for decades to be worthy of being in the presence of an avatar. People from the simplest walks of life are coming here, are having their lives healed and redirected and transformed. And you can be a truck driver, you can be a Marine, you can be someone who's a monk or who has been on the path for a long time, but all of us are finding the same clarity. As Swamiji says, don't chase this form, because at the state that he exists in, there is no person in there anymore. He left a long time ago. The personality that was born into that form left through his work. And now he's a doorway. So when you get in his presence, when I'm in front of him, I get what I need. When he steps to the next person, whoever's in front of him, they could get something completely different, but it's exactly what they need. So he has a beautiful video on YouTube, and you can go to YouTube and see all of his discourses, all of his clicks, all of the bliss bites, as we call them, because his name means eternal bliss, Nithyananda. And the Paramahamsa is the designation of enlightened beings in this lineage. It means supreme swan. So his name means eternal bliss. And as he says, we have the God-given right to live that state of existence. We should be in bliss all the time, and anything else is not worthy of us. Dump it. There's no reason to feel worry, anxiety, fear, lust, too happy, too sad, all of this manic depressive disorder that's going on in the world. I think most people are suffering from some version of it, because the highs and lows will wear you out. And the teachings involved in Nithyananda's courses show you how to get rid of that from your life once and for all. And all of the stories that will be coming out through this show will help you see how it's manifested for people in all kinds of different situations, even indirectly. When I first started my little meditation group in Canada, just because I'd learned this great Nithyananda, and I didn't think I'd ever go to India. It really wasn't on my bucket list, and I didn't know anything about India. But this meditation for me was foolproof. It was 5 steps that could calm any mind. And so I started holding it in my little basement suite, and then I told the owner of a coffee shop that I went to, and she said, "Why don't you have it here?" And I didn't ask, I wasn't even thinking of that. And this is what happens when you finally get aligned with pure consciousness, is you don't even have to do any work. Things just start landing in your lap. And so I just thought, what a great idea. This is my favorite coffee shop. It was a cute little house that had been turned into a cafe. So she just handed me the keys, trusted us. We would meditate in her place Sunday mornings before she opened. And the group grew to be over 60 people. And as a thank you, I gave her a CD of the Nithyananda meditation. And I didn't know it at the time, but her husband had been bedridden for years with multiple sclerosis. And when she was at work at the cafe, he had a helper. And every day the helper put on the Nithyananda meditation, even though he was just laying there and didn't seem to be responding. And then one Sunday, she was off, taking care of him. She said they woke up in the morning, and he got out of bed and went and had a shower. And she just absolutely freaked out. And he said, "What are you so upset about?" And she said, "You haven't done this in years." And he went, "Oh, I guess I haven't." He completely walked out of that identity. And so I got this frantic phone call from her going, "What have you done? What is that CD?" And I thought, "Oh no, what have I done?" And then she explained this miracle, that just by listening to it, he completely forgot he was sick. So these are the kind of stories you can look forward to on this show. And it has yet to be named, so you can find me on Facebook, Ma Nithya Mayatitananda. And if you have a suggestion for a name, I'd love to hear it. And now I'll close with the Purna Mantra, and I look forward to seeing you every day. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purna Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Sakuru Paduka Paramastu. Om Nithyanandam.